computer.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, I think we're recording.
Yep.
All right, this is Brent Rains for Alternate Perceptions Online Magazine. Today's Thursday, February the 9th, 2023, of course. This is being pre-recorded, and I'm talking today with Allyn Evans, MBA. She's the Executive Director and President and Residential Trainer for the Monroe Institute. She's certified Reiki Master and teaches energy medicine with a Dr. Brian Dailey, an MD. Anyway, it's good to talk with you, Allyn.
Yes.
I've been kind of, thanks to Dan Erickson, he brought us together.
Yes.
And I know that he's a frequent visitor to the Monroe Institute. And I was curious because on two separate occasions, I've met people who were interested in these devices here called, they're pre-Columbian Peruvian whistling vessels.
Oh,
and
okay.
They're double chamber, and some are single chamber, some are up to 4 or more. And there's a little resonator right here that's a specific width. They're tuned so that they're a little bit different in frequency, blown together. People say that they enter kind of an altered state of consciousness. With these, they sometimes visit visually or maybe out of the body, kind of ancient historic sites like Machu Picchu down in Peru or something. And here's another one right here. These are functional replicas. And when they're blown together, of course, they have different pitches, so they kind of create a binaural beat effect. So two people who have, gone through the hemisync program have told me that they were, because they had gone through the program, they knew about the different levels and they were able to kind of resonate with what was going on. They could catch on. So I'll just blow one for demonstration here.
Okay.
And anyway, and they're kind of effigy vessels. They have these carvings on them.
They're beautiful.
So that's how, and I kept hearing about the different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that, I asked Dan, I knew he'd been involved with the Monroe Institute, and, could you tell me about him? And he directed me to you. And so here we are.
Here we are. Well, I was going to say, with the binaural beat effect, it's something that has been, when we, around for centuries. We've just recently, and I'd say recently in the last 50 years, labeled it and able to use it in a sound technology. But when you're like monks chanting or singing hymns or drumming circles or, any of those things can put us in those states as well. Just like what you just demonstrated, we're hearing, especially if we're hearing those two different devices being used, then it can help us create, something. The brain is trying to reconcile the two different tones it's hearing. And then that's what helps line it up for possibly for experiences. And that's what our frequencies do. So we have very directed, purposeful frequencies that we can use in combination together, recipes that help us go to certain states of awareness. And that's what Bob Monroe did. He created this map and he called it focus levels. So that's what you're referring to. So when we put one recipe together, we might all kind of have an experience, or most of us will have an experience of focus 10. And focus 10 is body asleep, mind awake. Now think about that.
Kind of
Literally, body asleep.
Dream.
Well, it's a foundational, in my opinion, it's a foundational focus level that's very critical to being able to set yourself up to remember, to be conscious of experiences that you have. And so that, again, the body asleep literally means body asleep. You can be meditating, hear somebody snoring, wonder who the heck that is. And then all of a sudden you realize, you become consciously aware, hey, that's me doing that. So literally your body can be asleep and you can be, alert and
Wow.
aware of what's happening. And there are other focus levels. Our Gateway, our flagship program, introduces you to 4 focus levels, again, with very unique purposes. And we find that using these recipes or these combination of frequencies, we can help direct people to be going to those places and having similar experiences or ways of describing what it's like.
Wow. And I know out in Colorado, in Hooper, Colorado, back in 2008, there was a lady who said she had mediumistic abilities and had taken the program into quite a high level, and she really enjoyed the whistles when I introduced them. And I would let different people in the audience, blow them and try to get like from one end of the audience to the other, so everybody could experience the psychoacoustical effect, as it's been called.
Right.
And she said that she was, she really, because she had been through the Monroe program, was able to, just zoom right in. And she had claimed something about a level 49 that where she was actually experiencing beings or whatever, And so I wonder if you could maybe tell us a little about the different levels beyond 10 there and their different attributes.
So within our programs itself, we do have a program that does take us to Focus 49. And within Bob's system, that's the highest focus level that we've got a recipe for. Doesn't mean we have to stop at that level of or that space, but it's what we are helping you go to. And with the sound technology, it supports you. Like even with the Focus 10, I could be saying, okay, I'm going to give you Focus 10 signals for 30 minutes. You're going to be in this meditation, you're going to be in Focus 10, but you can actually transcend that state. It doesn't keep you there. It just ignites that opportunity for you. And then your own personal higher self agenda, whatever, your overlay there will take you where you're supposed to go and, have the experiences you're supposed to have. The focus levels, again, just give us a way to identify purposeful states. So, we have Focus 12, Focus 15, Focus 21. We talk about all those are in our flagship program, Gateway. So with Focus 12, it's more of kind of the container of self, access to higher self, nonverbal communication, which we tend to have a lot of times in dreams. That would be a good way for people to relate to it if they haven't had meditative experiences with this, or out of bodies or lucid dreams. Focus 15 is no time. That doesn't mean time doesn't exist, but it's a place where we are more readily able to access the past, the present, even the present moment itself. The future. The present moment itself can be seen as a lot of people describe it as this big void that they're in. So it's a focus level that typically requires some type of initiation, some type of activity, some type of, I have a purpose to be here. I'm wanting to review a past life. I'm wanting to look into the future. I'm wanting to experience a parallel life. And it doesn't have to be based on this parallel past life regression type thing, but it's just a place where we need to initiate with our imagination, typically, to have an intention to have an experience. Focus 21 is more where we're crossing into that more subconscious area. That's a space where we can start having these interactions with things greater than us, outside of us, external of us. So maybe deceased loved ones, entities, as you say. And then with Focus 27, that's another one that we have several programs that focus on Focus 27, and we call it the park. And that's basically, in this Monroe language, is where you would go between life and death and have experiences, but we can also visit that within the scope of our meditations. We can have Focus 27 experiences when we're still in this reality right now. So that's a few of them. 49 is getting more into it's our Starlines course, and it's more into that cosmos experience way outside of our what we do here.
Well, that's quite interesting. Sounds like you could do away with standard hypnotherapy and just dive into this program.
Well, I'm sure, those who benefit from hypnotherapy, I think you could probably put them both together and it'd be very beneficial. So,
Well, I know with the whistles, we've had some times where people, in fact, I was part of one of these episodes where it seems like suddenly it's not only you're seeing or experiencing a certain awareness or visual imagery, but others around you, when you compare notes, found out that they were experiencing the same thing, like you had an ESP thing going on.
So we have a lot of that happen. A lot of it's anecdotal because we're not we're not setting up a research project or study for that particular phenomenon. But when we train courses, we know that participants will interact together in those meditative states. They come out of those meditative states sharing experiences with the group. And so I have firsthand heard that many times, and I've also experienced it myself. Even Tom Campbell, I don't know if you're familiar with who Tom Campbell is. He was one of Bob Monroe's early researchers. He wrote The Theory of My Big Toe. The Theory of Everything. And he was with Bob Monroe for a while. Another scientist, Dennis Menerich, they were young men at the time and just helping Bob part-time because Bob was very interested in staying clear of anything woo-woo. He wanted it to be very structured and so that it could be taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dennis read an article about binaural beats. Binaural beat effect was actually discovered in 1839 by a German scientist. This article was writing about it, and this was in 1970. I think it was 1979 is when this happened. And Dennis read the article, connected the dots, and said, we need to do this with the sound technology that we're working with. So they did it. And as the story goes, Bob said, we have a tiger by the tail and I don't know what to do with it after they started making that combination. But the two men, Dennis and Tom, would be in Faraday type cages. We call them our prep booths, but they are, very insulated and protected like a Faraday cage would be or similar. And they would have meditations at the same time with the intention of doing just that, of meeting in those meditations. Then they would verbally record their journeys because we have microphones in those prep sessions, so you can do that. And then Bob would interview them separately, and then they would come together. And they had numerous times that they were doing activities together in that meditative state. Yeah.
Well, I know we had the whistles one time, myself and a group of other people. We had 7 whistles and we're out on a pontoon on this lake in Memphis, Tennessee. And myself and 3 other people described like a spinning vortex. We described it differently. Some of it was like water, some of it was like energy. And I asked, okay, which direction was yours going in? It turned out all 4 of us were seeing it as spinning in the same direction too. So it was like, that was kind of odd, synchronistic. And also with, of course, the binaural beat, I guess for those who might not know it, the way I understand it is you got 2 different frequencies and suddenly a third is created. They're close together.
Right. The brain perceives the difference. So you can think of the brain as a third ear, and it's trying to organize what it's perceived as kind of a scrambling going on. And then that's what leads us to the frequency following response in the brain. It subtracts the difference of the 2 frequencies.
Yeah. And during the time that you had Stanford Research Institute and all the remote viewing program going on, and I've read where certain people involved in that were quite interested in what the Monroe Institute was researching, and would visit your facility and participate in some of the programs. In fact, seems like one book I read by Joseph Chilton Pierce told that at one time there were I think it was 3 generals that had gone into the program.
Yeah,
So
we
it
had
was,
some interest from the military. We definitely did.
yeah. So it's definitely a technology or an approach that covers a wide, full spectrum of things. And the binaural beat thing, of course, there were speculations with approving whistles. They go up to, these of the Chimu culture would go up to I think 2,000 cycles per second. They were, thinking maybe the harmonic frequencies altered consciousness in some way, but then the binaural beat too, with them tuned differently, could also be a factor,
Exactly.
Anyway, well, that is now the book that actually describes, I don't know if you mentioned it, but if you know it, if you could throw it out there, where those 2 researchers working with Bob and doing the work had the microphones inside the Faraday cages. That's written up perhaps where
So
people
Ron Russell is the author, and it's The Journey of Robert Monroe. And it's one of his bios, or biographies. And there's 2 out there, and this is by far my favorite. And Ron was a personal friend of his, but Ron also did an excellent job of showing us who the man was, both strengths and weaknesses. So I find it to be a very interesting telling, and then also it gives you that stories just like I shared.
All right, awesome. So right now, after this, you're going to be pretty soon heading out to California. So you're going
Tomorrow.
to be, I assume you're going to be co-trainer in one of the Gateway programs, right?
Well, no, not actually. I'm presenting shorter programs. This is an expo, yeah. So it's more of keynote presentations, but I will be demonstrating the sound technology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So anybody out there in California will be, but you do that a lot with California and Texas, going out to work on these programs. All right. Is there anything further you'd like to tell our, the listening audience about?
Yeah. Well, so I would say that when you look at the sound technology, you look at it or consider it as a tool. And the beauty of it, when you experience it, it helps you identify a certain experience. So then you can return to it. So in a meditative state, once you've hit that focus 10 level, let's say, and you've identified it, then with or without the sound technology, that is a place that you can go back to. And so it is a training, it is a muscle building thing, but it is a wonderful way to help your brain go into more of a state that can lead you to view life in a different perspective, which tends to bring you more joy and peace and understanding, even when things are kind of out there looking really crazy to you. And so I highly recommend it. If nothing else, if for nothing else, that it's also really an excellent tool for someone who's wanting to do some type of self-evolution, self-development, because it can help you connect with those unconscious behaviors, things that are directing those behaviors that you're not aware of on a conscious level. So it's an excellent way to work towards self-healing and growth.
So if anybody wants to log into, say, the Monroe Institute's email, the website, and learn more, what would be the website address?
So monroeinstitute.org. It's really easy to remember. And then also we do have an app now, and there is a free, if you install it, there's a free version. So you would have a good selection to try. And then if you wanted to, subscribe to it, that's about 12 something a month or $70 a year. So it's very reasonable. And we have close to 90 meditations on there now, with also an extended timer feature, which means you can play something as long as you want with different background choices. So different frequencies you select with different either surf sound or music or different backgrounds. So I would highly recommend checking that out.
Okay, does that go to all the different levels that we've talked about, or?
It goes to 21, focus 20. To go past that, you have to come here or take one of our programs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we prefer to be able to be of assistance as you explore some of the focus levels that are, yeah. So we feel comfortable with from 10 to 21 with you doing it self-guided.
Okay. Did with Bob Monroe, did he seems like I read something or heard something once about he felt that he was in contact with intelligences beyond ourselves in
Yes.
this, maybe even extraterrestrial or something.
Yes.
Okay. Would that be in the book you mentioned earlier?
I'm not quite sure if it's in that one, but Bob has written 3 books as well, and that's where you would find his own explorations detailed.
Oh.
And Out of the Body, Journeys Out of the Body is the first one, and I can't remember the titles of all 3 of them, but that would be the first one. And it definitely it's wonderful to read because it shows his surprise, his fear around it all, and how he worked through it. And then when he realized it was something extraordinary, he put all of his attention and focus on educating others and helping others have a similar experience. And that's the beauty of the work here, is that we're not saying, hey, I have this experience, let me share my experience. We're saying, you go have the experience and let us know, what that was like. And that helps people go from, I believe this, to knowing it, because you experience it firsthand.
Yeah. Awesome. So are those 3 books available on
our website? And so is the one I mentioned with the journey of Robert Monroe. We have a wide selection of books written by trainers. Joe McMonagle, who's Remote Viewer 001, he's one of our trainers, and very interesting story in life. We also have others who have gone through programs here who have written books that detail some of that. So if you're just curious and wanting more information, that's how I started. I was gobbling up all those books before I got here, just to better understand what it was all about.
Yeah. So how long have you been part of the program here?
So I showed up for my first Gateway in 2009.
Oh,
and
not that long ago, really.
No. And I became a trainer in end of 2010, early 2011 was about the time I became a trainer.
Oh, so you dove into it.
I did. It wasn't my plan, or, I didn't have an agenda. It worked out that way. The door was wide open and they pulled me through it.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I appreciate you, Allyn, taking this time to, answer these questions and, talk about this fascinating program. And I think we've covered about everything. I know I talked about we could talk for about a half hour, and we could cover. I think we've covered it all pretty well. If there's anything else that you want to add, please feel free. But otherwise, I won't. I know you got to run off to California here pretty soon, so
yes,
I appreciate you taking this time to talk with me. It's been very interesting and enjoyable.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it as well.
Okay. All right then. Well, you take care, and maybe we'll be talking again here sometime as I come up with maybe some more questions.
Oh, perfect. Would love to.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you, Brent.
much. Appreciate it.